Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2023 International Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communications. I am the MC of today's event. My name is Lee So-yeon, and it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. This international conference is being held under the theme of Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication in the Era of Digital Media. We have invited experts in the field of broadcasting and communications and experts on the Korean Peninsula to promote the public's understanding on unification and also to pursue inter-Korean relations based on practicality and flexibility. This is sponsored by the KCC and hosted by KISDI. So this event will be carried out in two parts. We have 4 presenters, and also we will have a general discussion with 6 panelists under the theme of Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication in the Era of Digital Media. Also, to ensure greater participation, we are airing this international conference live through the YouTube channel of KISDI in both Korean and English. We ask for you to take part until the very end of this event, both online and offline. Let us now begin the opening ceremony for the 2023 International Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communications. I would like to invite President Bae Kyung-yul, the president of KISDI, for his opening remarks. Please greet him with a big round of applause.
Pleased to meet you. As have been introduced, I am Bae Kyung-yul, President of the Korea Information Society Development Institute. Today we are hosting the Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication in the Digital Media Era International Conference, co-hosted by the Korea Communication Commission and the Korea Information Society Development Institute. It is indeed a great pleasure to be able to host this international conference. We have the participation of many distinguished guests here today, but I will not be introducing them one by one. But I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speakers and discussants. Thank you to our audience for your participation with your interest in inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation. And we live in a world where physical exchanges were not possible due to COVID-19, but thanks to digital spaces, we have been connected with new mechanisms, and that has accelerated digital transformation. In the case of North Korea, they are also seeing digital transformation with the introduction of new media platforms such as YouTube and TikTok. We are at a point in time where we need to think about the mechanisms and discussions of how to accept the broadcasting and communication by North Korea. And at this point in time, the Korean Peninsula is currently at a juncture of complex crisis with world security crisis and climate change. And at the same time, in order to achieve freedom, peace, and prosperity, we need to set a vision that can be accepted by everyone, both in and out of Korea. Broadcasting and communication is an important infrastructure that facilitates communication for a peaceful Korean peninsula. Broadcasting and communication can strengthen national sentiments on reunification. It can also enhance the interests of the international society. It can also contribute to practical and flexible as well as harmonious inter-Korean relations. As a national task, we hope to strengthen a national consensus for reunification, and we also wish to establish international norms. And at our institute, we are currently conducting a relevant research. At today's international conference, our Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication, we hope to serve as a platform for cooperation for future prosperity based on free and peaceful coexistence of the two Koreas. At today's international conference, I do hope that we will be able to prepare for a peaceful Korean peninsula. I would like to once again thank all of the speakers and discussants in advance for providing us with their insightful discussions as well as their precious experiences. I do hope that today's experience serves to be fruitful for everyone here today. Thank you very much.
네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. We have just heard from President Baek Yong-yul of the Korea Information Society Development Institute, KISDI. We have participants joining us through online and offline, and the president thanked all of our participants. He also talked about ways for promoting inter-Korean broadcasting and communications exchanges, and he hoped that this event will be informative for all. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, President Bae. Let us now begin the international conference. There will be 2 presentations first. If you have any questions related to the presentations, please write them down on the questionnaire that we have provided you in advance and submit your questions to our registration desk during the break time. Your questions will be answered during the general discussion, the last part of our event. Let us now invite our first speaker.
We have with us Dr. Sang Jung, Principal Researcher at the Korea Institute of Sports Science, who will talk to us about current status of sports broadcasting in North Korea and Inter-Korean Sports Broadcasting Exchange. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
이대로 하나요? 이대로 하면 되나요? 네, 부담스러워.
Well, I am the first presenter of the day. I feel a heavy burden for this position. I am Sang Jung at the Korea Institute of Sports Science. Our institute is not an institute that is related to broadcasting, but I have been invited as a speaker. And I gave a lot of thought into what I can present. We are not an expert in North Korean broadcasting, but nevertheless, I have been invited as a speaker, and the host, KISDI, also provided us with a lot of information. And so with that information combined with our experience, I have come up with this presentation. It hasn't been long since the closing of the Asian Games, and that gave us a glimpse into the attitude of North Korea for sports broadcasting. And this is something that I'm sure that you have also seen on Korean news. And so you may think that my presentation is on par with what you have already seen in the media, but my presentation will start with how we can approach to understand sports broadcasting by North Korea. We need to first begin the understanding by understanding how North Korea uses broadcasting and how they deliver information to the North Korean society using broadcasting. So that is the start of my presentation. Recently, within the information community of Korea, they have published information on North Korean broadcasting, so I took a literary review of that. And then in 2022, there was a series of sports broadcasting conducted in North Korea, so I reviewed the broadcasting done in 2022, and there have been extensive inter-Korean sports exchanges in the past, so I took a look at the characteristics of inter-Korean sports exchanges. And then the last part of my presentation will be on the tasks for inter-Korean sports broadcasting exchanges for the future. So I would like to present these 4 topics against the backdrop of my experience. Maybe I will not be able to live up to your expectations, but nevertheless, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will do my best to fulfill my role as the first presenter. This was a long time ago. In 2007, I had an opportunity to stay for 5 days in Pyongyang. And in North Korea, there is a very famous sports-related organization. And if you are interested in North Korean broadcasting, then I'm sure that you have heard of this sports organization. While I was staying in Pyongyang for 5 days, I was not able to have full access to broadcasting in North Korea because sometimes at night the electricity would be cut off and we would not be able to watch TV. But when I did watch TV in North Korea, it was mostly about animations or TV dramas to ignite loyalty for the North Korean government. And I gave a lot of thought into why North Korea broadcasts such contents, and so I took a look at the North Korean Broadcasting Act. This Broadcasting Act is a part of the Socialist Constitution. So they want to make sports a part of their everyday lives to strengthen their ideology and culture. And this part of the Constitution is then melted in to Article 3 of the North Korean Broadcasting Act. So sports that you enjoy every day is probably for your happiness and for your leisure, your health. But in North Korea, sports is completely in order to strengthen laborers and the nation. And that is a part of the Socialist Constitution of the DPRK. And I wanted to take a look at whether this concept is also reflected in the North Korean Broadcasting Act. Because in the Constitution, it did not talk about the broadcasting in any way. But in 2015, the North Korean Broadcasting Act was enacted. And in order to understand North Korean broadcasting, I think we need to have an understanding of the North Korean Broadcasting Act. There are a total of 7 chapters and 55 articles. We have a separate Broadcasting Act in Korea as well, and North Korea has that as well. The first article is the mission of the broadcasting, and it's educate the people ideologically and culturally and contribute to building a strong socialist nation. So that is the mission of broadcasting in North Korea. And if we take a look at the terminology, broadcasting is defined as a form of media propaganda that informs about social reality and serves as a means of ideological and cultural education. That is the definition of broadcasting in the North Korean Broadcasting Act. And Article 4 states that sole guidance is provided by the state and everything has to receive prior approval. This would never be accepted within South Korea, but in North Korea, unauthorized persons, organizations, or companies are prohibited from broadcasting. And the basic requirement for broadcasting production is that it has to guarantee ideological artistry, culture, and reality. And prohibition of leaking confidential information is stated in Article 28. The Central Broadcasting Organization is stipulated to take control and lead. And so the word control and lead can never be used in the South Korean laws, but in the North Korean Broadcasting Act, these words are used verbatim. And there's also an article on administrative punishment and criminal liability. And so citizens can be punished according to the North Korean Broadcasting Act. This would never be possible in South Korea. And what I wish to explain about the North Korean Broadcasting Act so that we can understand the actual broadcasting in North Korea. So I'm explaining this act for your understanding. If there is broadcasting contrary to the authority and interest of the state equals Kim Jong-un in North Korea. This is something that we are all very well aware of. So broadcasting contrary to the authority and interest of the state and accidents occurring in writing, design, or description causing social controversy. These are grounds for punishment. And when you think of these grounds for punishment, what comes to mind? You would think that this may have been true in the past, but in the recent Korean news, in the North Korean news, you've probably seen that they have expressed South Korea as puppets, and they are using the word puppet based on these grounds. And so by using the word puppet for South Korea, they are trying to build their loyalty for the state, to build a strong socialist nation. And so the word puppet was used to refer to South Korea in order to contribute to a strong socialist nation. So, as I mentioned before, broadcasting and sports broadcasting is being used to build strong socialist nation, and sole guidance is being provided by the state. Prior approval is completely possible in North Korea. If you have seen North Korean culture on YouTube recently, you probably have come across such contents introducing North Korean lives. There is a lady by the name of Yumi who leads us to North Korean lives on YouTube. And I don't know if this is the same for Korea as well, but there are also YouTubers that are children. And I don't know if this is an influence that they took from South Korea, but there's an 11-year-old YouTuber in North Korea. So externally, you may think that even children are free to move about and also become YouTubers in North Korea. But if you take a look at the North Korean Broadcasting Act, you know that that is completely not true, because unauthorized persons cannot participate in broadcasting. And so we can infer that YouTube channels picturing children and young ladies are being filmed according to the North Korean Broadcasting Act to build a strong socialist nation. And that is the characteristics of the North Korean Broadcasting Act. And when I received this information recently, this was quite shocking. There was a long list of broadcasting done concerning sports in North Korea, but this was true. A lot of content on North Korean TV is on sports. So from January 1st to December 31st of 2022, all contents of broadcasting in North Korea has been reviewed by KISDI, and it was quite surprising to see that of 365 days in 2022, 232 days were used to broadcast contents related to sports. Of course, some of the contents is redundant, but approximately 339 broadcasts, including coverage and game recordings, were aired on TV. And so I don't think such a huge content related to sports would be aired on any Korean channels with the exception of sports channels. And we can see that there were 41 episodes in the form of compilements. In North Korea, they tend to bring back outstanding sports stars from the past to show them again to the public, especially ever since COVID-19. North Korea did not have any prominent results on the international stage related to sports, so they're actually using former sports stars to show contents concerning them. A prime example is Baek Il-soo, who is a legendary gymnast from North Korea. 8 episodes were aired on this gymnast, and Park Chan-suk, who is a Olympian, also was aired on North Korean TV concerning her weightlifting medals. And they also had a compilement of sports events related to soccer in 2021. So because Kim Jong-un was known to enjoy basketball and wearing Nike shoes and clothing in Switzerland when he was studying there, we thought that a lot of the contents would be on basketball, but there was one content related to basketball, and that was it. And they also have 4 episodes of a segment on specific sports games. I can't seem to flip through my slides.
그리고 경기 녹화 부분들이
And we have also seen approximately 290 times of game recording, and a bulk of that was soccer. They broadcasted games from the World Cup qualifiers as well as European qualifiers. And they also included South Korean team's 16 match against Brazil. And there were 24 cases of broadcasting related to Winter Olympics in 2022. And what was unique was that they also broadcasted games from Wimbledon as well as the French Open tennis tournament. But not many people play tennis in North Korea. But despite so, they actually aired programs related to tennis. They also aired the 대황소상 National Shirum Finals, which is a national sport in North Korea for New Year's. And in North Korea, there was not a lot of horseback riding, but ever since Kim Jong-un took power, they also broadcast competitions at the Mirim Horseback Riding Center. They also aired games from Qatar World Cup, and they introduced the game as 32 countries from 5 continents participating. But North Korea did withdraw in April 2020, and they were not able to make it to the finals because of their withdrawal. But they actually broadcasted games on 80 occasions, and minimum duration of the broadcasting was about 50 minutes. And they actually aired the French-Argentina final match for 2 hours and 25 minutes. Well, the 3 terrestrial broadcasters in South Korea actually has the rights that they have earned from FIFA. And FIFA requested that we share those broadcasting rights across the Korean peninsula, and therefore North Korea was able to use this broadcasting. It would have been great if they actually used our screen, but they actually blurred the symbols related to South Korea, such as our national flag, as well as the emblem of Hyundai Motors. Well, the past chairman of Hyundai Motors was a supporter of North Korean people, and they provided a lot of help to North Korea, but they actually blurred the Hyundai car symbol. Well, of course, they probably have their inevitable reasons, but we did see a lot of blurring related to South Korea. And in the 2023 Hangzhou Asian Games, they did not transmit any games. This is because South Korean broadcasting channels did not provide the rights for transmission. They did not ask for these rights, and we did not share these rights. And so because North Korea did not ask for support, we did not provide support, and therefore North Korea was not able to broadcast the games from the 2023 Hangju Asian Games. They were only able to broadcast through their news. And during the main prime time news time, they actually labeled South Korea as puppet. And this was something that everyone talked about in South Korea. So you can see that they have labeled South Korea as puppet according to their broadcasting act. So, as I mentioned before, out of 365 days a year, they actually had sports-related broadcasting on 232 days, covering 339 instances, and we have seen various versions such as edited versions, recording, live streaming, and previews. And we have also seen that they are bringing back past superstars, and that actually is to enhance the loyalty of the people for the state. And this is also used to motivate the current players so that they can become great players like the past. And if we compare all of this contents, we can see a few characteristics. If we listen to the North Korean defectors who were related to sports industries in North Korea, they always talked about how they thought that North Korea was the best sports country in the world because they only get to see games that they win. And there are no broadcasting related to US and Japan up until a few years ago, but recently we have seen that there is less of games where just there are victories of North Korea, but there are also departure from avoidance of broadcasting contents related to hostile countries such as US and Japan. This is because Kim Jong-un is focusing on the lives of the people and he's using sports for his politics. And they also lack the technology to create their own contents. So in order to fill their time on TV, what they do is to use the contents that they are provided through IOC or FIFA or South Korea to fill their time on TV. And that is why there are so much sports-related broadcasting. And by re-emphasizing past sports stars, they are using this to strengthen the ideology. And last year, there were over 100 soccer-related contents aired on North Korean TV. As you are well aware, Pyongyang actually opens the Pyongyang International Soccer School, and they bring in and recruit Italian coaches. And then what they do is to export talented players overseas. And I'm sure that you have seen a few of these through the media. There were some stars that were on par with Son Heung-min in the past, but that star has not been seen on the soccer field, and he has not come back for the Asian game either. And he was a graduate from Pyongyang International Soccer School. So by raising talented sports stars through the Pyongyang International Soccer School, they then export these players overseas so that they can bring back their earnings to the North Korean government. And they're also using new content such as Taekwondo rhythmic gymnastics. So by utilizing Taekwondo for their rhythmic gymnastics, then they can use this for their everyday lives. In South Korea, there was a time in the past where everyone participated in exercising for 10 minutes between classes And that is what North Korea is pursuing currently. And they are using Taekwondo as their contents. In North Korea, they believe that they created Taekwondo. Well, anybody will know that Taekwondo was created in South Korea, but North Korea has said that Taekwondo was created by North Korea, and they are saying that Taekwondo has been rooted in traditional martial arts, but actually North Korea had never done Taekwondo until South Korea taught them Taekwondo, but because ancient Korea was founded in a city in present-day North Korea, they are saying that Taekwondo is rooted in traditional martial arts, and therefore Taekwondo was created in North Korea. So, North Korean sports broadcasting emphasizes this. As you're well aware, there were numerous inter-Korean sports exchanges in the past, and there are a few characteristics of inter-Korean sports exchanges. First, there is the traditional aspect. The start was 걍평전 in 1929, but 경평전 was a sports exchange between two cities during the Joseon dynasty. That was before Korea was divided, and so North Korea always emphasizes that 경평전 was the start of sports exchanges, but that is technically not true because this was before the division of the two Koreas. And when I always speak to the Ministry of Unification, they always talk about all of the conditions that North Korea wants for inter-Korean sports exchanges. Currently, when we actually have sports games with North Korea, it's usually at an international event outside of the Korean peninsula. But we believe that there is a tradition of culture and sports exchanges between the two Koreas. We have over 70 years of division, and we are seeing that the two Koreas are becoming more and more different. But one thing that is the same is sports, because we are playing sports based on the same rules. Of course, we have different terminologies used in sports, but sports are played on by the two Koreas based on the same rules. And so sports is actually the only homogeneous factor between the two Koreas. So if there is a sports event in North Korea and we watch that game in South Korea, we feel like we are the same because we are playing the same games based on the same rules. And both Koreas are very much interested in sports. If there's an inter-Korean soccer game, that actually leads to that game being the highest viewed TV content in South Korea. If a unified team is formed, then there are organizations that love to see this, such as FIFA or IOC or FISU. They actually love to see the two Koreas forming a unified team and also participate in joint parades, because these joint parades and unified Korean team will lead to promotion of international events. And so there are international organizations that are always looking for the two Koreas to form unified teams. And so arbitration and mediation is sometimes possible through these international sports organizations. And so according to these characteristics, we have continued sports exchanges, but there have been breaks. So, for example, negotiations began in 1960 for North Korea's participation in the 17th Rome Olympics. And we talked about unified teams ever since then. In 2018, there was a single women's hockey team. And then during the Jakarta Asian Games, there was a unified team. And in early 2019, there was a unified team for a game in Europe. But ever since then, we have not seen any unified teams. We could also participate in joint cheering during the 2000 Sydney Olympics. North Korean IOC member Chang has negotiated with South Korea for a joint parade for the opening ceremony, but we were not able to participate in the joint parade for the opening of the 2008 Beijing Olympics because there was the incident where a Korean tourist was killed in Mount Kumgang. But this was resumed for 2018, so there has been quite a few instances of joint parades for opening ceremonies. And for games that are hosted in South Korea, many North Korean sports players did participate, probably because of the financial support that is provided. But weightlifting is a sport where North Korea has a strength, and so South Korean players participated in international weightlifting games in North Korea, and we have seen South Korean players participate in those games. In 2003, there was the Jeju National Peaceful Unification Sports and Culture Festival, and in Gangwon-do, there was a ice hockey friendly match as well as a taekwondo demonstration for Incheon Metropolitan City and Gyeonggi Province. They participated in inter-Korean youth soccer tournaments. And if we take a look at other sports, soccer, basketball, taekwondo are some of the sports events that had inter-Korean participation. So up until the 90s, there was usually talks about performing a single team. And North Korea always wants half of the players to be North Korean when there is a unified team. But for South Korea, we want to make sure that the good players, the better players become a part of the team, because in South Korea, when the players participate in the Olympics or the Asian Games, they really need to win a medal, because winning a medal means that they will be exempt from mandatory military service. And so it's very difficult to come to an agreement for men's teams because South Korean men need to win medals so that they can be exempt from military service. So it's very difficult to negotiate. And that is why most of the single teams are mostly for women's teams or youth teams. From the 1990s to 2000s, during the Kim Dae-jung and Roh Moo-hyun administration, there was a sunshine policy. And at that time, there were a lot of exchanges. And then after the 2000s, as I mentioned before, there was the killing of the South Korean tourist in Mount Pusan that has led to the severing of ties between the two Koreas. But there are some people who believe that the cooperation that was conducted during the 2000s was actually inter-Korean exchanges, but shaking hands and having joint practices really is not a part of inter-Korean sports exchanges, because we believe that those events were not for inter-Korean sports exchanges, but as a part of the way to participate in international events. So these instances should not be included as instances for inter-Korean sports exchanges. For example, because of COVID-19, North Korea said that they don't want to participate and they withdrew from the Tokyo Olympics, and they were actually sanctioned because of that. I don't know if this can be waived, but North Korea may not be able to participate in the Paris Olympics. Weightlifting is one of the only events where North Korea can receive a gold medal, but during a game in Mexico last year, they had non-compliance related to doping, and so they were not able to participate in the Mexican Games. So there is a chance that North Korea may not be able to participate in weightlifting events in Paris next year. So there are some responsibilities that need to be fulfilled by individual countries for individual sports associations. And so it's very difficult to say that participating in international organization requirements is a part of inter-Korean sports exchanges. Well, this is something that I've already included in my presentation materials. Ever since the Olympics, well, before the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, there was a souring of relations between the two Koreas. And when the government announced that there will be a unified team, many people were against it. But once we have seen the unified team, many people changed their mind, which we can see on the survey. What are the tasks for inter-Korean sports broadcasting exchange? First, we need to solve the political distrust. Well, Chang from North Korea, an IOC committee member, has mentioned that politics takes precedence over sports. I can't believe that this is a statement by an IOC member. He mentioned that they need top-level agreement before we can talk about sports. And we also need to have a preemptive opening to North Korean sports broadcasting. So North Korea prefers to actually add their commentary to the contents that is created by other countries. And since South Korea has outstanding broadcasting technologies, maybe this is a part that we can utilize. When we first opened our culture to Japanese culture, many people were against it, but we benefited from this ultimately. And we could also utilize cable TV and public TV. Of course, in order to do so, we need to revise our Broadcasting Act. But currently, KT's reunification channel, it is not being transmitted currently. And so I hope that we can overcome these difficulties because we have outstanding broadcasting contents. I think if we open our TV to North Korean broadcasting, I don't think we would be swayed by that. And so I think we need to be confident enough to open our doors to North Korean contents. Thank you very much.
네, 고맙습니다. 프로그램에
Thank you very much. Thank you for being our first speaker. That was Mr. Sung Moon-jung. He talked to us about the major contents of North Korean broadcasting, as well as the current status and characteristics of North Korean sports broadcasting, as well as our task for inter-Korean sports broadcasting exchanges. Thank you.
실제
Let us now go on to the second presentation. The speaker is the CEO of Cat on a Roof, Mr. Kim Myung-hwan, and he will talk about the case study of creating contents related to North Korea utilizing digital technology. Please greet him with a big round of applause. Yes, thank you. I will give a presentation on an actual case of creating contents related to North Korea utilizing digital technology. My name is Kim Myung-hwan, CEO of Cat on a Roof. So it's a relatively new company established in April of 2022. We work with KBS, MBC, and international broadcasting companies create documentaries related to North Korea. Until March of 2022, I was a head producer for JTBC broadcasting channel Spotlight, and also I created a number of documentaries like The Story of the Two Cities and etc. I would like to ask for your understanding. 2 weeks ago, I had a surgery for implant, so I ask for your understanding. So first of all, I'll be talking about the direction of the planning and the contents, and then the application of virtual production technology. Inter-Korean exchange-related contents. Up till now, we've heard about an expert of broadcasting speak, but now I would like to talk about the contents, which is my field of expertise, producing contents. I'll talk about how we plan for the contents and how we produce the contents with the various people involved, the staff members. And also, North Korea is a very unique space. So we would like to look at the progress made. Of course, the progress may be sluggish, but we would like to look at the current status of creating contents related to North Korea and the way forward for greater performance in relation to contents creation. So, first of all, we have to think about the why. Why do we have to create contents related to North Korea or inter-Korean exchanges? Well, first of all, we do believe we have to do so. If we look at the Constitution, it states that we have to prepare ourselves for the unification of the two Koreas. So, as we prepare ourselves for that future day, I do believe that this is a role of the broadcasting sector to create the related contents on inter-Korean exchanges to prepare for that day. But number two, we have to look at this from industrial perspective. Well, the documentaries or the dramas or the entertainment programs have looked into North Korean related, into areas outside of North Korea. Around the world, there are many different countries or regions that have been introduced. But North Korea, the north of the DMZ, is a place that has not been well introduced. So for the producers, if we utilize North Korea as a source for imagination and a source for creation, we do believe that this can be a very interesting area for creating new contents. And also, if you look at the global community, people are interested in North Korea, but they do not have the accessibility. So if we gain the accessibility, we do believe that we can create contents that can appeal to the global audience. And that is why with the UK production team, we are creating a documentary related to North Korea. And next year also, we have a larger scale project that we are pursuing with the European team as well. So these are the reasons why we want to create contents related to North Korea or inter-Korean exchanges. So if you look at the general contents, we just have to plan for it and then produce the contents. As soon as we have the budget, we can gather the staff members and start produce. But when it comes to inter-Korean exchanges related contents, we have to think about two things. First of all, essentially, we have to think about the planning of the contents because this can be very sensitive material and it has to be acceptable by North Korea and South Korea. Also, if we are to enter into the global market, we have to think about the audience of the global market. Will they really like this content? And number two, is this realistically possible to produce North Korean related contents? Because of course we might want to shed light on North Korea, but it has to be realistically possible to actually create contents related to North Korea and gain accessibility. So we have to think about those two things. And so this is direction for planning of such contents. You may agree or disagree with this, but we do believe that in order to continuously create North Korean related contents and inter-Korean related contents, of course, we will have to do better. But up till now, I have made some contents, and this is my belief. First of all, the contents has to be irrelevant with politics or ideology. We also have to be able to expand people's empathy. And in order to do that, we have to be free from political issues issues or ideology. For example, the story of two cities. Well, this was a documentary about Seoul and Pyongyang, and we stayed away from politics or ideology, so we talked about food, taste buds. And today we'll be talking about the displaced people because of the division of the Korean Peninsula, but it has nothing to do with politics and ideology. And number two, if we look at the entire Korean Peninsula as a source for ideas, we can really expand our imagination for creating contents. And if you look at the photos here, these images are captured from the videos that we hold IP rights. This is the front sea of Wonsan, and also we utilize time-lapse and various approaches that has not yet been applied up till now to inter-Korean exchanges related contents. We need high-quality contents in order to showcase contents related to North Korea and inter-Korean exchanges. But we need really quality contents. So, having said that, let me explain about what we planned for this documentary. The Tale of Two Cities, of course, this was inspired by Charles Dickens' book, The Tale of Two Cities. We wanted to think about how we can connect the two cities together. And that was a motive. We wanted to connect the two cities, Seoul and Pyongyang. We tend to think that these cities are against each other, but actually we want to think about how we can connect the two together. Who are most pained by the division, which has been driven by the Korean War? We thought about that. And then we thought about the displaced people who had to leave their hometowns because of the division of the Korean Peninsula. Of course, there has been a lot of contents related to the displaced people on the Korean Peninsula up till now. But we wanted to try something new, even though we created contents about the displaced people. So we thought about the COVID-19 pandemic, and also how we have entered into a stage of soured relations between the two Koreas, and how North Korea has closed down its borders during the pandemic. Against this backdrop, we wanted to come up with a content that really appealed to the people dealing with the displaced people. So last year on MBC, as an end of the year special program, this was aired. As you can see, these gentlemen were not able to visit their hometowns in North Korea for almost 80 years, but they yearned to visit their hometowns, their childhood hometowns. So they were able to actually drive the roads of North Korea and approach their hometowns and feel as if they were actually there. We wanted to create this kind of contents. We thought, would this be possible? And we found out that we could utilize digital technology known as virtual production technology. We decided to apply this technology to create this kind of content. So let me explain how we made this possible. So this content, like I mentioned before, this was already aired as the end of the year special program and took 1 year and a half to create this. It was a 2-part series. And as I mentioned before, we had to think about how we're going to access the footage of these gentlemen's hometown in North Korea, because this is a particular spot, the protagonist's hometown. But there could have been changes over the years. For example, there could have been a road that has been newly established or built, and so the hometown might have been demolished. So would this person, there were two actually, but would they be able to actually see their hometowns? So for example, there was a different program that was aired on TV, and there was CG that enabled a person to meet a family member that had passed away. But this person was the only person who could be immersed in that experience. But we wanted even the viewers watching this content to be immersed in that experience, watching the video. So we wanted to utilize digital technology, virtual production, to make this possible. So that's what we did. And so this is how we approached the program creation. Last year, we aired this as a two-part series, but also we had a special program that was aired on MBC, which showcased North Korea's railroad system. This was the first time that North Korea's railroad system was shot and captured on camera and aired. So as you can see, this was during the pandemic period because everyone has their masks on. And this is something that will be aired next year, but through KBS, we did showcase a preview. This is My Mother's Hometown, Gema Plateau, and the preview recorded a viewership of around 5%. We hold the IP, intellectual property rights, for this video contents. And as you can see, this is very high up. It's a plateau. And it's a very large area, about 20% of the total land area of South Korea. So it's a very large area. We were able to record this on film and showcase this. In the past, there was another program that showcased the Gema Plateau in the past, but we had been able to shoot the Gema Plateau for all 4 seasons. And this was really an in-depth program that looked into the various features of the Gema Plateau. So we had the footage of North Korea, especially the Gema Plateau. So we had these different footage of North Korea that we could utilize for this program. So that was the first step. And number 2, this was during the pandemic period, and the displaced people were elderly. We had to take care of them, but we had to make sure, because they're over the age of 80, we had to make sure that they were healthy. We met and interviewed about 100 people, but we had very clear criteria. We had 3 when selecting the people who will serve as the protagonists of this documentary. They had to have a very strong will and yearning to really want to visit their hometowns. So we wanted to look at them, see their facial expressions, and really see for ourselves that these people really wanted to visit their hometowns, because that would enable the viewers to really feel that these people yearn to visit their hometowns. And that would provide a very emotional experience for the viewers when these people actually do visit their hometowns through this video virtual production technology. And also number 2, there had to be a very clear memory of their hometowns. For these gentlemen, it was a very clear memory of their mothers. And also, they will go to their specific villages that they lived in when they were young. They would talk about their memories through the interviews that they will record in South Korea. And then we would have them go visit their hometowns using the digital technology. But they had to be very healthy in order to go through with this experience. Of course, we had the emergency medical experts on the venue where we were shooting this video. So at the end, well, this was right before he would see his hometown with his own eyes. And he was thinking about his mother and his hometown. And you could really feel for his yearning to meet his hometown and how he longed for his mother. They are standing at a place nearby their hometowns. One is standing at the Kumgangseong Chinseondae, and another is standing in front of a seashore in Wonsan. So we applied the virtual production technology here. So what we just showed you is a video clip. And as you can see, this man, he's not actually visiting North Korea's hometown, but he's coming to the studio. But he will have this experience as if he is driving through the roads nearby his hometown, and that he would have this experience of actually being able to arrive at his hometown. This is the Netflix studio located in Paju. As you can see, there is a very large LED screen. And what's important is the front LED screen that you see. So there is the displaced person, the protagonist of the documentary, and the director team did not have experience of this technology and how to produce this. However, we had the experts here in the studio, and we went through a lot of different rehearsals to make sure that this would work and this would work seamlessly. So we have on the LED screen the protagonist's hometown videos, but as you can see, we're in a studio. We had to ensure that there is an immersive experience. So the LED screen, which is 2D, and the hometown that is portrayed within the LED screen has to be connected seamlessly with the environment, the space within the studio, so that the 2D and the 3D reality are connected together in a seamless manner. So for that, we needed the experts in the studio, we needed the hardware, we needed the set, we needed the props, we needed the technology, and so when I was beginning with this project, because I did not have the prior experience of this technology, I did not know well, but I later learned how we could make this happen. So there were two different spaces, but we had to connect them together to have a fully expanded space. Of course, this technology was used in other contents. For example, the Silent Sea, for example, this LED wall was utilized, and so on the LED wall, the space or the moon was showed, and that 2D space was connected with the studio, the 3D space, and the people who were shooting this felt as if they were actually on Mars, the moon. But the LED video has to be very stable. And also the width and the height, as you can see, it's very large. It's not 16 by 9. So what we had to do was we had to adjust the space, and the angle had to fit. Everything had to fit perfectly. But the biggest challenge was that the films, the dramas, you can just cut. There can be an NG, and you can shoot again. But in this case, we had the protagonist visit the hometown, but we cannot stop in the middle. We couldn't predict how he would react. However, the camera or the lighting not working is unacceptable because his first reaction is something that we can capture only once. So we showed him, this is what we've captured for the past year, and then we showed it for the first time. So his first reaction is something that we can capture only for the first time. So this was very important that we got it right the first time. So this is how we reproduced the space in North Korea. So this is the design. As you can see, there's the front, the top view, and the side view. And for the front view in the top, you can see that the LED wall is all connected together. And when the car is driving, the bonnet and the window, well, everything has to be seamlessly connected together to give that feel that this car is actually driving on a real road. We had many different cameras. We had 4 cameras placed, and we did a prior rehearsal so that we can capture the protagonist's expression on camera. So the camera had to be linked together with the LED video seamlessly together. And also, if it's a wider angle, then that would be a wider screen, a wider video, and everything was connected together in real time. And the directing team had no prior experience of virtual production. That is why we had invited professionals to join us. So Westworld is a CG company that works with Netflix. We had the CEO and his team come work with us. He worked with a number of projects, including Squid Game, The Silent Sea, and etc. So, and this team said that this is very interesting because although they had portrayed and reproduced the moon through the project Silent Sea, it's the first time that they have reproduced North Korea in this manner. And it was a very good collaboration. It was very successful. And also there was different processes that we had to go through, but for the contents, we looked at the areas or the venues that the protagonist really wanted to visit. And we made sure that we had the footage of that location. For the Silent Sea, of course, we had to create the moon, and that was 3D CG. So when the protagonist moves around, of course, the LED also moves around as well, that we can use CG technology. And so that can be more vibrant. But this case, it's not the moon, it's North Korea. So we had to think about whether we would utilize the existing footage that we actually captured or whether we should use CG. We decided that it would be better to go with actual footage that we had filmed, because what this gentleman wanted to see was not something that we created using CG technology, but the actual footage of North Korea, or actual scenery of his hometown. So that's why we decided to go with the footage. But later on, if we have another opportunity, perhaps we can combine the two together. So we first filmed his encounter with his hometown. And like I said, we had connected the LED screen with the studio space as well. And so let's say that we have a North Korean restaurant here, then we have to make sure that we have the screen, and then we have to make sure that there are tables set here and people are sitting in front of the tables, and make sure that these people with the props are organically and seamlessly connected with the people in the screen as well. So the angles and everything has to met perfectly, and also it has to be the exact perfect light as well. The lighting in the studio has to be exact same light or the level of lighting as you see in the LED screen as well. So everything has to match perfectly. And I told you that we use the actual footage of North Korea, and I think that this was most powerful. But we were concerned whether this man would look at the footage and really be moved and touched and feel as if he was actually visiting his hometown, because he has to have that emotional feeling, and that would be the main point, the key point for enabling the viewers to feel that way and be touched. So because of the time, I will not be able to show you the entire video clip, but the virtual production, well, we did have some room for improvement, because he had to stand right in front of the LED screen. But we wanted to do was, well, he was really moved, and so he actually moved out of the spot where he had to stand. He had to stand at an exact spot in order to have that seamless connection between the screen and the studio. But anyhow, we do believe that what was important was his emotion and what he felt. Well, first of all, this was North Korean related contents, but we do believe that this has the potential to become a global content. And also, this was a time when there was stagnation in the inter-Korean relations. It was difficult for the displaced people to visit their hometowns, but we do believe that we provide an opportunity for them to experience their hometowns utilizing digital technology. This was produced due to the support of KISDI and KCC, and this actually costed a lot. We also received support from Gangwon province as well. We do believe that with more efficient production and also cost-effective preparations, we do believe that we can even improve this kind of production experience. So with digital technology, we can reproduce, or we can produce contents that had not been possible in the past. So for new contents related to inter-Korean exchanges, we do believe that there is great potential. There were, of course, room for improvement, but we do believe that we were able to confirm the great potential for contents related to inter-Korean relations and exchanges. Thank you. So did you enjoy the presentation? I think that there were people who were moved, some were shedding tears. This was a presentation by Mr. Kim Myung-hwan, the CEO of Cat on a Roof. Thank you very much for your presentation. So we will conclude part 1 of the international conference and take a short break. We will take a 5-minute break and reconvene with the 2 presentations for part 2. Thank you very much.
네, 짧지
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed your break. Although short, I hope it was a refreshing break. Let us now begin part 2. And the presenter is Dr. Masa Kunhen of the
주민의 외부
She will talk to us about North Korea's acceptance and influence of external media. She will present via video as she could not participate in person. Please take a look at the screen for her presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Marta Kuhnhen. I am a postdoc at the Department for Communication Studies at the University of Greifswald in Germany. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Korea Information Society Development Institute. The KISDI invited me to give a talk about North Korea's acceptance and influence of external media. I'm very honored to be invited to give this talk. In my presentation, I am going to broaden this topic with a look back into the history of the former German Democratic Republic. I will talk about control and consumption of foreign media in the former German Democratic Republic and why this might be interesting when studying North Korea. History teaches us a lot about the present and the future. By looking into history, we can make reasoned considerations about developments in the future. So, with my presentation today, I would like to discuss possible developments within North Korean media and society based on the history of the former German Democratic Republic. Hence, I cannot provide final answers. Instead, I would like to initiate further discussions. My presentation is structured as follows. First of all, I will outline the background and motivation of my presentation. Following that, I will justify why I compare the control and consumption of foreign media in North Korea with the control and consumption of foreign media in the former GDR. Based on this, I will provide some insights into the control and consumption of foreign media in the former GDR. I'll discuss how this evolved into media liberalization and how this media liberalization finally promoted vast societal changes. Finally, I'll discuss insights from the GDR history for a possible media liberalization in North Korea. I will also discuss important differences between the two countries that limit my reflections. First of all, let me share the background and motivation of my presentation. My talk is based on the article Media Liberalization, Control and Consumption of Foreign Media in North Korea, China and East Germany. I co-wrote this article with Mickey Lee and Wei-Ji Zhang from Suffolk University in Boston. Our findings are based on a literature review of foreign media control and consumption in North Korea, China and East Germany. In our article, we look at the interplay between consumption of foreign media and media reforms. Further, we discuss whether these media reforms might promote societal, political, and economic changes. Since there is little data on the influence of foreign media in North Korea, we approach the question of media liberalization in North Korea with a comparative method. My colleagues and I conclude that a possible media liberalization in North Korea is more likely to follow the path of media liberalization in the GDR than the path of media liberalization in China. This is also one reason why I focus on East Germany in my presentation. Let me give you a brief linguistic remark. In my presentation, I will refer to the former GDR as East Germany. That is, the term East Germany will always refer to the former German Democratic Republic in this presentation. Now, looking at the GDR, I would like to give you the following basic data. This map shows the GDR. West Germany bordered to the west, Poland bordered to the east, and in the north, the GDR lay on the Baltic Sea. The GDR emerged from the Soviet occupation zone. The GDR was a socialist country which existed from 1949 to 1989. In 1990, the GDR finally merged with the Federal Republic into the Germany we know today. The GDR was governed by a single party, namely the Socialist Unity Party of Germany. In its last year, which was 1989, the GDR had about 16 million inhabitants. So why is a look at the history of the GDR inspiring for reflections on media liberalization within North Korea? Basically, there's an important commonality between the formerly divided Germany and today's Korea. Both are or had been divided countries. Similar to Korea, Germany was divided into a Soviet-influenced part, namely the GDR, and a Western democratic part, namely the Federal Republic. However, the citizens in both divided countries share or shared one language and one history. Both in North Korea and in the GDR, the media is or had been state-controlled. In North Korea, consumption of foreign media is under very harsh penalties. Nonetheless, North Koreans do consume foreign media. In one of her publications, Jen Baek illustrates the usage of foreign media in North Korea, as we can see in this quote. And I'll stop for a second so that you can read the quote for yourself. Because of these similarities I mentioned earlier, a look at the historical development of media liberalization in East Germany seems inspiring to study the case of North Korea. So let's have a closer look into control and consumption of foreign media in the GDR. Similar to the North Korean media system, the East German media system was under tight control by the ruling party. Even though the GDR Constitution of 1949 prohibited press censorship, the government actually controlled media content by restricting the circulation of information. So the ruling party controlled the media system by instilling a news monopoly without official censorship. However, government control of the media weakened over time. The consumption of West German media was actually widespread among East German citizens. About 90% of East Germans consumed West German media in the mid-60s, including the majority of the Socialist Unity Party members. Reasons for the usage of Western media were to receive alternative information, to seek entertainment, or inner emigration, and I define inner emigration on this slide. The West German broadcasting signal was accessible in the GDR, except for a few regions. As a result, the US radio broadcasting in West Berlin, the radio in the American sector RIAS, introduced a program that specifically addressed East Germans. Although the East German government tried to defame RIAS and jammed their signals, these tactics did not deter the consumption of West German broadcasting in East Germany. Considering the widespread use of Western media in the GDR, the present academic director of the GDR Museum in Berlin says that West and East German citizens were still a cultural nation, a unified nation of radio listeners and television watchers. And let me give you a short side note about the GDR Museum. On its website, the GDR Museum provides many videos about different topics and issues regarding the GDR. All videos have English subtitles. You find the link to the videos on this slide. there was also a flourishing black market for Western media goods. Press, books, comics, and records were all bought and sold behind the state's back. The government tried to stop illegal trades, but citizens would always find ways to buy and use Western media and technologies. From 1971 to 1989, the media was progressively liberalized. In 1973, the GDR ratified the basic treaty between the two German states that regulated their partnership and officially claimed their peaceful coexistence. In the course of this treaty, Honecker, who was head of state at that time, publicly stated that any GDR citizen could use West German broadcasting. Further, to respond to the widespread use of West German media among East Germans, the local media adopted Western elements, such as providing more entertainment programs and fewer political ones. A popular example was the East German TV show A Kettle of Calder. This show was broadcasted for the first time in 1972. East German, as well as international and also Western celebrities performed in this show. The massive demonstrations and the final turnaround in 1989 are sometimes labeled as TV revolution or media revolution. These labels underscore the importance of the media to effect political changes through social movements. So let me sum up how the widespread use of Western media in the GDR led to significant changes, not only in East German media, but also on a broader societal level. In short, the path of media liberalization may be outlined as follows. Western elements might be embraced in local programs. Further, Western media might be officially accepted. Eventually, this might lead to a general opening towards Western culture and politics, and eventually to societal, political, and economic changes. Of course, many other factors that are not related to the media lead to these changes. However, the importance of media liberalization regarding general societal changes should not be underestimated. Based on these historical insights, let me discuss possible implications from the East German case on North Korea. North Korea faces a situation similar to East Germany. Because of its geographical proximity to South Korea, many North Koreans could receive spillover radio and TV signals. In the East German case, the leaders believed that if the government could not deter the consumption of West German media, they may as well lift the ban on West German media. This promoted a general political and societal opening to the West. The East German government's steps toward a westernized and liberal media system could serve as a model for North Korea if the government decides to reform the media. However, there are significant differences between North Korea and East Germany that limit these reflections. In the case of Germany, media liberalization was associated with the reintegration of the two Germanys. However, media reform in North Korea does not necessarily mean North Korea will be reintegrated with South Korea for a number of reasons, and I would like to present two of these reasons. First, one reason for the reintegration of the two Germanys was the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was a very specific context. Second, North Koreans have little freedom to move, even within the country. Citizens are not allowed to travel freely between city and rural areas. Unlike East Germans, who were free to travel around East Germany, the lack of interactions between the urban and rural populations in North Korea means there is little information exchange even within the country, making it difficult to form cross-class mass mobilization. The elites could maintain their power, privilege. With these limitations in mind, I conclude my reflections on possible developments regarding media liberalization in North Korea. Once again, I would like to emphasize that the reflections in this presentation are based on a literature review and a comparative method. The aim of this approach is to initiate recent reflections and discussions for developments in the future. The example of the GER shows how media liberalization contributed to the general opening of the country and eventually to the reunification of the two German states. As I said earlier, this presentation is based on a literature review, so let me share my resources with you. And you find these sources, the literature, as well also in the article I presented earlier. Finally, and again, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Korea Information Society Development Institute. Especially, I would like to thank Jung-ho Yoon and So-young Seo. I regret that I'm not able to attend the conference live or even face-to-face in person. I would be happy about further interactions on this complex, sensitive, and important topic. Feel free to contact me by email. Thank you.
네,
Thank you very much for your presentation. Despite your busy schedule, thank you for sending this video copy of your presentation. We had a presentation by Martha Kunin on North Korea's acceptance and influence of external media. Thank you.
마지막 발표.
Let us go on to the last presentation of part 2, which is on the topic of game industry in North Korea, hybrid and fusion of technologies and cultures. The speaker is Dr. Lee Ji-soon of the Korea Institute for National Unification. Please greet her with a big round of applause. Yes, good afternoon. I am with the Korea Institute for National Unification. My name is Lee Ji-soon, and thank you very much for inviting me to this important event. Today, I will be talking about the game industry in North Korea. Before I go into that, I would like to state that this research, in some sense, because North Korea, because of the COVID pandemic, it closed down its borders. So the data that I've gathered for this research is before the pandemic. And I'm sure that there have been many changes over the years, but my data, the data that I use reflects up till the point before the borders have been closed down. So we will take a look at two different cultural contents before we go into the game industry. First is Skit, the Passionate Reader. And here we can see that one gentleman who is a manager of his business, well, he goes to Electric Library to play a game, 장기, and then the arcade of Ryugyong Arcade is something that you can connect with when you look at this scene, because the person goes to a similar arcade and the wife tells this man to eat instead of playing games. And also, this is a novel, and here there is one person, a doctor, who criticized the young people who play games. And this person says, "Do you know what I hate most? Young people play frivolous games or entertainment on their mobile phones, on the subway, on their free time, and this is a problem." So as you can see, that in the cultural contents, there's mentioning of young people playing games, which means that in the general lives, daily lives of the North Koreans, people are enjoying games. Then why is it that North Koreans play games more than we had thought of them to do so? It is because this is part of their culture. that has been developed within the North Korean borders. First of all, the games had flown into North Korea in a legal manner, but this was distributed among the individuals illegally. But then, as the industries related to the ICT gadgets and devices developed, softwares also developed accordingly, and thus the games were developed as well. So the beginning would have been illegal distribution among individuals, but then we can say that the institutions and the systems for the distribution of the games were established. So then how did the games among individuals, how were they distributed? In the mid-1990s, there was the time of the March of Hardship, which is a time of very severe economic difficulties. That was when the people started to play games. And this is a very ironic situation because during the time of the arduous march, this was a time that people were willing to do anything if they could earn money. And that is why, although it was illegal, people started to distribute games because this could lead to profit for the individuals. In the border areas, the Japanese console games were imported, such as Mario games, and people would purchase the games in the markets and people would play the games, and some people would earn money by having people come to their homes and play games using the game consoles that they purchased. And then in the 2000s, there were PC games that began to flow, and this was based on personal relationships. These PC games were usually the games that were popular overseas. These were games that were very famous and popular, and these were games that could be downloaded on your personal computers. Of course, these were games that could be played online. But in North Korea, most of the games were games that you had to download on your PCs. And the 삼국지, which is Three Kingdom, is generally known to be a game that it was popular within South Korea. The reason that 삼국지, the Three Kingdoms, was popular was because it was in the Korean language, and it was easy for the people of North Korea to play this game. How did you know that 삼국지 is a Korean game? I asked the North Koreans, and they said that the design of the fonts or the language used was not North Korean. So they knew that it was not North Korean made, it was South Korean made. And also e-libraries, which has been made digitalized since 2015, served as official PC rooms in the respective districts. So the North Korean regime did not have a lot of budget, but they had the e-libraries, and the people who were affluent in that neighborhood would go to the e-libraries and they would actually purchase PCs with their own money, and they would use that space to earn money using the PCs that they purchased. So that's how the e-libraries would serve as PC rooms. And also I talked about the Ryugyung arcade, which was showcased in the drama. And there were online PC games that were distributed through the arcades. And also there is a place called the Information Technology Exchange Center. And this was a place that received commission as high as 30% to sell games that can be played on mobile phones. And starting with the end of 2019, there was the application 4.3 version for My Road Comrade. This was a game that people could download on their mobile phones. The official game distribution means the games were now officially distributed under the authorization of the North Korean regime. So in the arcades, people could go and play games for their leisure activities. And according to the Nodong Shinmun, the Nodong newspaper, people said that it feels like I'm riding a real horse. So it's an experiential game that they're talking about. There is diverse equipment that we can utilize, said another person who was interviewed. So the Nodong newspaper ran interviews of people who had visited the arcades, and some said that it was really enjoyable. I didn't want to leave. And you could see that people really enjoyed this experience of playing games at the arcades. Also, North Korea started to officially develop and distribute games, and one type would be the console games. Nintendo Wii or Xbox. The North Korean made console games takes a similar form. And what you see here is photos that has been provided by Mr. Alex Sigley. But here you can see the inside of the Information Technology Exchange Center in Pyongyang. And there are many different game flyers that promote the games. So through the Information Technology Exchange Center, mobile phones are sold. And here you can purchase games as well. And you can see that there were flyers that would induce the people to purchase games. So now let's take a look at how the games, which used to be illegally distributed among individuals, became officially distributed. North Korea started to develop software technology and also AI technology as well. There were games such as Baduk or Jangi, which is Chinese chess, and North Korea had their own unique technology regarding these games. And also there were games that were made by Hanaru Telecom that were imported by North Korea and distributed domestically. Also in the early 2000s, there were IT experts who had the opportunity to go overseas and participate in game developing projects. Of course, this was the unofficial overseas work experience of these North Korean experts. But anyhow, they went overseas, participated in these projects, and accumulated the know-how for developing games. So they were able to go overseas and learn about the different advanced games. And they came back to North Korea and served as the foundation for developing the game industry in North Korea. And then in 2016, North Korean made hardware such as tablet PCs or mobile phones were developed. And also the software that can be run on the hardware were developed as well. The softwares, well, there were the softwares for the office space, there were softwares for household use, and also for education. And also there were the games that were developed, which helped sell more mobile phones. How were these games developed? Of course, there were individuals who developed the games, but it was difficult to have these individuals publish and sell the games that they develop. So they had to be part of institutions, and these would be education institutions or research institutions or corporations, public corporations. So these software projects were developed under the names of these institutions, but it was actually the individuals of the private sector that were behind the development. And there was one game that was particularly successful, and this was a game titled Power, developed by the Kim Il-sung University. This was actually a game-based game show-like game. So they would ask common sense questions. So this game actually sold very well in North Korea. And this game titled Power was installed on most of the mobile phones that were sold in North Korea during this period. It was very popular. But what happened was that there were the institutions that would publish these games, and they would take some part of the profit. Let's say that they took 30%, and 20% of the profit would be given to the developer. So that was actually a substantial amount of profit for the private sector developers. And there's actually a law that ensures the copyright of the private sector developers. And that is why a lot of the IT developers would start to work and become part of the game industry. But what happens if you fail in your game development project? It was actually a high-risk, high-return endeavor. And so the private sector developer would take on the high risk because this provided high return. And there was a game ecosystem built in North Korea, which was very complex. There would be games that mimicked and imitated overseas games, and then there were the games that would copy or adapt overseas games, or there were games that were self-developed. So there was a mixture of these different types of games existing within the game ecosystem of North Korea. So let's take a look at the value chain of the gaming industry of North Korea. The red box, I think, would be the unique characteristic of the North Korean gaming industry, and this is actually the legal part. So there would be the developer. It could be an individual, which is part of an institution or enterprise, and then there is a publisher. But right before the publishing stage, the most important stage takes place, which is the censorship. You need to receive the approval from the state in order to publish the game. But you have to go through a number of different agencies. The first is the National Information Technology Administration, then the Ministry of People's Security, the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Communication, the Quality Supervision Department, and etc. And the last part would be the Censorship Bureau. And then you're published, and then you go through the platform for distribution. There's the online and the offline versions. For online, there are games that were published such as My Road Comrade, and the offline platforms I mentioned about the information technology exchange centers where people would go and purchase the games. Sometimes they would download the games as well. So the producers and the consumers are mixed together in the ecosystem of North Korea. There's the unofficial routes and the official routes, and also there's imitations and adaptations, but also there's creative self-development as well. The unofficial distribution channels were utilized for distributing illegal games that were imported illegally from overseas. But at the same time, the North Korean IT specialists, they have their know-hows for developing games as well. There were the imitated games or the copy games that does not hold the IP. So they would distribute the copying rights. And although this uses the official distribution channel, because the IP right royalties were not paid for, there had to be blackwashing taking place. The characters were blackwashed so that localization takes place to have these games copied and released as a North Korean version. The people who participated in this process were those who had experience overseas developing games. And also, when you're developing games, well, in the initial stage of the gaming industry in North Korea, there were more copied versions or imitated versions, but gradually, self-developed games by North Korea increased in number. These are characters from hotel or inn management simulation games. You can see that the images are quite familiar. Of course, the hair colors, which used to be blonde, or the eyes that used to be blue, were blackwashed so that these could be blackwashed and transformed into a North Korean version. Then the North Korean card game is known as Jupe. And this is a game that is distributed only in North Korea. So Jupe game has to be developed in North Korea because it is unique to Korea. You have to plan the scenario, you have to plan for the characters as well. So it's very uniquely North Korean. If you compare the characters on the top and the top are the blackwash characters, the bottom are the characters self-developed by North Korea. You can see the difference. And here the North Korean games, you can see that the overseas games were illegally distributed. The characters or the fonts are changed to North Korean characters. And these are illegally distributed. Of course, because of the IP issue, there were the risk of international conflict surrounding these games. Of course, the legal distribution of such games are decreasing in number. And in North Korea, there was acceptance of grammar of globally trendy and popular games. And for example, the Candy Crush Saga or Anipang. These types of games are quite popular not only in Korea but overseas as well. And in North Korea, of course, this popular game was accepted and was created in the game called 별지 가게, which means star cracker. And on the right, of course, there's a famous Tetris game, and this was made into a North Korean version known as the Bluetooth Tower Accumulation game. And here, once again, a very famous game has been readapted into a North Korean version, the Nimble Lady 2.0. You can compare that with Tomb Raider. You can see the resemblance here. In the case of Tomb Raider, the father is an archaeologist and he disappears, and the daughter goes in search of her father. So it's an adventure game. The Nimble Lady 2.0 has a very similar synopsis. And Lara Croft, the hero of this game, holds 2 guns. And as you can see, the Nimble Lady also holds 2 guns as well. But Lara is very sexy. She wears the short pants, but sexuality cannot be emphasized in North Korean games because then it would not be able to pass the censorship. So you can see that the attire of the character is different and there is no sexual appeal of the character here. So North Korea, from imitation and reference, develops into a stage of developing uniquely North Korean style games as well. But talents in the IT field that has experience overseas would be participating in the gaming industry. And there were those who graduated from Kim Il-sung University as well. There were elite IT experts, and they were increasingly going into the gaming industry. They had try to reduce the costs for the design and the planning of the games. So what they did was that they would imitate and reference the overseas games to reduce the budget required for the planning and the design of the games. And so that is why some of the North Korean games show some aspects of capitalism. And also, North Korea had the expertise and know-how of AI technology, and that was applied to games such as the Baduk and Changi and Jupe games. And these were uniquely North Korean games that were developed by the North Korean experts. And also, history and culture were used as source for North Korean style games. Another point that we should focus on is that the entertainment aspect has been emphasized for educational content as well, because North Koreans wanted to avoid the educational content from being too boring. Let's say that a parent would purchase this education content software. The children would not enjoy the content, the software, and would not want to use it if it is boring. And that is why they would promote the educational content as being educational, but at the same time entertaining. So rather than targeting the parents, you can say that this is a very uniquely North Korean culture. But anyhow, emphasizing entertainment only can be a little bit too much for the North Korean society at this point. And so educational content is emphasized at the same time as entertaining aspects as well. So as I mentioned, history and culture were contents that were utilized for North Korean style games. And these images that I am showing you are some of the images that I were able to grab hold of utilizing the media that reports on North Korea. I was not able to gain direct access to North Korean related games. And also the IP-based games, the OSMU, as you can see, there's one drama. There is a game that's based on a drama. And also, most of the game players are youth. So there are some animations in North Korea that all of the young people know well about. For example, you can see the image, the character that takes the form of a squirrel, which is a very famous animation. And that, because it is so popular among the young people and well known, character was used as a character for games as well. And also you can see that North Korean games do not have a particular nationality. Usually, the games would reflect a certain country as a background. But as you can see here, the North Korean games do not promote a nationality. There's no socialist-related images, or there's no socialist aspects in the scenario as well. There's no particularly socialist-like a style in the background as well. That is something that we should note. And the narrative of the games, for example, what you see on the left, the two images, are the maps that you can see in the Nimble Lady 2.0. And as you can see, these are the maps that you find in the adventure. And there are the lizard man characters that you can find along the way that you have to fight against. But actually, if you think about the usual North Korean art style, it's based on realism. However, these games are not, and there are imaginative figures and villains such as the lizard man that appears in the games. And also on the right, you can see that the background is something magical, does not reflect the reality of the North Korean society. Also, the AI technology has been applied to these games. What you see on the left is a baduk game, and on the right is a chupe card game. The card game has many different versions. It's a game that is beloved by all North Koreans, regardless of your age and gender. And it's very noteworthy that North Korean people would enjoy these types of card games. And then here you can see the simulation games. The business management simulation games are popular. What you see on the right is the simulation game for running and operating an inn. And you need a strategy to play the game on the left. It's a strategy simulation game, which is quite different from the usual types of art forms that you can see in North Korea, which is based on realism. A lot of game experts say that these games made by North Koreans are quite high in quality. And if you look at the game list installed in My Game Comrade 4.3, what's interesting is that the price points of these games are quite diverse. There are free of charge games to games as expensive as 5,000 won. And also there are some functions or devices that are not supported. There are some games that cannot be run on certain devices, and so there's guidance related to the device that a certain game can be run on. And also it says here challenge, competition, and ranking. There are competition games that people can play with other people online. And there's a list of the people who played and the ranking here. And the top players' names can be identified. What's ironic here is that in order to play these types of challenge competition games, you have to pay. And there's the in-app payment system is well developed within the North Korean games. So there is a tiger that comes out, and if you want that kind of effect on your game, then you have to pay for it. And also, there's items that you can purchase within your game using the in-app payments. And if you're losing the game, but still you want to go on to the next stage, then you can actually purchase an item, game item, using the in-app payment system. So there are these in-app payment systems that have been developed to induce the players to spend money playing the games. And also in 2016, there was a casual game developed known as the Young Warrior. And this is a game that was developed using North Korean technology and know-how. And here you can see that there are 4 main characters. 2 are locked in. You cannot actually gain access to the 2 characters. But if you want to gain access to the 2 characters, which are more popular because these characters are the ones that appeared on the original comic version, you have to pay money. And also in the real game stage, if you want to go on to the next stage, you need to have a particular item. And for that, you need to have the points. There are 2 ways to acquire the points. First, you can purchase the points, or number 2, you can get the quiz right. And one of the quiz questions would be, the little match girl in the world's masterpiece fairy tale, who is the writer or the creator of this fairy tale? Or another question would be, what is the speed of sound in air? So these are common sense questions, nothing to do with North Korean ideology. So there were, of course, some questions related to history of 고구려 or 발해, or some quiz questions related to Pyongyang, but that's all. So let's summarize my presentation. North Korean games, of course, a means of play, but the concept of productivity is not emphasized in this new leisure culture centered around the gaming industry. And also you can see that entertaining aspect of games are emphasized instead of ideologies. For example, the costume of the character is something that you can purchase within the game. You can purchase the game items. And so there are a lot of capitalist features that are introduced in the games, and within the games you will find that people were able to indirectly experience the outside world, such as the high-rise buildings or the cityscapes, the tropical rainforests and beaches, and the sports cars through racing games. And also there were differences in experience based on class, gender, region, economic power, and digital literacy. Also, with the introduction of online games, there was a more detailed censorship program introduced. Based on your personal information, you would be able to gain access to an in-app payment system. But in order to utilize the in-app payment system, you have to provide your personal information first and receive authorization. In the past, when you were caught for watching Korean media contents, you were strictly punished, but when you were caught for enjoying games, actually, the punishment was a little less severe. You could pay your way out. For example, IGI is a game where the US military wins by killing the enemy. This is also subject to crackdown, but it's quite popular, and you can escape the punishment through bribes. And teenagers and younger generations are now increasingly digital natives. And so I think that between these young North Koreans and the young South Koreans, there was not a big gap in terms of their entertainment culture. So I think that games can be used as a means for promoting exchanges among the 2 Koreas. Thank you very much for your attention. This concludes my presentation. Yes, thank you very much. We just took a look at the North Korean gaming industry and also the distribution channels and the ecosystem. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee Ji-soon. We have heard all of the presentations. I would like to thank all 4 speakers for their wonderful presentations.
We will now take a 10-minute break and return for the wrap-up discussion session to end our conference. Before we begin our break, let me provide you with some housekeeping remarks. We do have a survey for this conference. Please utilize the QR code on the screen. If you scan the QR code, you will be linked directly to the survey. Please provide us with your feedback so that we may reflect your feedback in future conferences. We will also provide you with a small gift for your participation in the survey. We look forward to your participation. Let us come back for the wrap-up discussion after a 10-minute break. Thank you.
네, 2023 남북
Welcome back to the third session of the 2023 International Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication. This session will discuss inter-Korean broadcasting and communication exchanges in the era of digital media. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our moderator and panelists. Our moderator for today is Professor Lee Jung-chul of the Seoul National University Department of Political Science and International Relations. We have with us researchers Hong Moon-jung of the Korea Institute of Sports Science, Mr. Kim Myung-hwan, CEO of A Cat on Roof, we have with us researcher Lee Ji-sun of the Korea Institute for National Reunification. We have with us Professor Chung Yeon-sun of Konkuk University. And we have researcher Kabo Sebo of the Seoul National University Institute for Korean Studies. We would now like to turn the floor to Professor Lee Jung-chul of Seoul National University, who will moderate the last session. Thank you very much. We have three presenters on stage with us. Recently, during the Asian Games, we have seen the wildness of the North Korean players. And how would we bring the wildness into the inter-Korean broadcasting and communication was something that we could see through one of the presentations. The virtual production presentation was quite moving, so we could see that the production itself was very moving. And concerning the game ecosystem of North Korea, I do believe that if we could be combined with users in both Koreas, it would have a great effect. Roll was the event that received the most interest during the Asian Games, and that actually shows that it could be a new motivation for inter-Korean sports exchanges using games. Thank you very much to the three presenters for your presentations. It was a great learning opportunities for us. We also have two prominent discussants here today. So we would like to listen to our two discussants before going back to our three speakers. And then we will open the floor to questions from the audience. And we do have some questions that we have received throughout the conference as well. First, let's invite Professor Chun Young-sun.
Yes, as I was just introduced, my name is Chun Young-sun, and it is an honor for me to participate in this important event as a panel discussant. This has proven to be an informative opportunity for me. Today, I was asked to talk on North Korea sports broadcasting and digital technology of production. So I prepared some PowerPoint stacks. Do you recognize the image that you see on screen? Actually, there's AI technology and also the I used AI technology and I inputted DMZ Park. And this is what I got. It was not exactly what I'd imagined to get as a result. Well, perhaps it's because of the data. I realized that data is very important. In an era of AI, training the AI system is very important, and the data set utilized for training the AI systems are very important as well. Sports broadcasting. Well, if you think about the relationship between the two Koreas, there has been much progress in terms of sports exchanges. Once we have improved ties between the two Koreas, we do believe that there can be two main areas that we should focus on for promoting inter-Korean exchanges. One would be religion. Number two would be sports. Well, when it comes to religion, of course, there's a lot of justification, and also there's a lot of ways that we can promote the inter-Korean exchanges in the religious field. When it comes to sports, we have to think about who should participate in the exchanges, and we have to think about what events that we should utilize. But there are the agreed international regulations when it comes to the sports events, though there is relatively less potential for conflict concerning these types of sports inter-Korean exchanges. Of course, there was some controversy over the unified team back in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, but I do believe that IOC wanted to promote the popularity of the Winter Olympics, and so we thought about promoting the reconciliation of the two Koreas. MBC was the main broadcaster for broadcasting the games, and because of the unified team, MBC enjoyed greater profits than it had anticipated in the beginning because people started to show interest in the Olympics because of the establishment of the unified team. I do believe that sports events can help promote the cooperation exchanges between the two Koreas, and also there's a lot of different collaboration cases regarding sports. Cooperation in terms of sports equipment, it was one of the past experience. And when combining sports with unification, I think that up till now we didn't have enough contents related to this topic. So if we were to prepare a broadcasting contents related to unification, well, after 1 or 2 years, I think that we have to come up with new ideas, but we have not been able to do so. So I think that combining unification, an old topic, with sports can be a new approach. I think that North Korea has a lot of players on its soccer team, even more than Brazil. There's a lot of soccer teams within North Korea. It's a very popular sports event within North Korea. And so I think that it might be good for us to think about introducing the trends of sports within the North Korean society in order to promote inter-Korean exchanges in the field of sports. Now, next on the topic of digital technology, there's one particular program that I myself personally participated in, and it was made by MBC. One singer, her name is Hyunmi, and her hometown is originally Pyongyang. And what we did was we utilized VR technology to reproduce her old house within her hometown. She has a device on, and the motive was Hyundai Motors Going Home advertisement. That advertisement used a studio, and someone was in a car and inputted the address of that person's hometown to drive to that person's hometown. But we took a different approach. We had her walk to the hometown using the VR glasses, and we had experts participating in our team to reproduce her old house in Pyongyang. And Dr. An Chang-mo, who was an architect, said that the front gate, we positioned it wrong. And also he told us where we had to position some parts of the old house. Because, for example, the 캉Theme, the jar that holds the fermented food, had to be in a certain location to ensure that the fermentation process goes well. So he pointed that out as well. And also the Chinese characters that we used for the shops. He pointed out that we used the wrong Chinese characters, and etc. And in Paju, we used a studio located in Paju to reproduce this house in Pyongyang. I think that when we approach the topic of unification, we always utilize this topic of family and reunions. And also for the displaced people, because they really miss their hometowns. What they did was, there was one content where they created a video of their hometown, and when you watch the video, the scent that they remember of their hometowns would be provided, so people can smell the scent of their hometowns as they watch the video. This is actually a project that is ongoing now. It's in development. And also near the DMZ, there is a train that is being utilized for education on unification for the young generation. We're thinking about applying digital technology for this unification education. The Ministry of Unification is thinking about various ways to provide unification-related contents and education. In Magokdong, you can use a QR code to gain information or contents about North Korea. And if you go to this place in Magok, you can use the Google glasses to see videos and experience North Korea. So it's like utilizing VR and experiencing indirectly North Korea. However, not a lot of budget has gone into these projects. That's the only issue. So Rolex or Geppetto, there are many different platforms that are being utilized for these types of projects. But when it comes to the technology for reproducing these spaces, we have not inputted a lot of budget for utilizing these technologies. The Ministry of Unification has opened up a DMZ metaverse world, and also I understand in Gyeonggi-do as well, a similar metaverse was opened for reproducing space in North Korea, but the quality of the metaverse world is not that good. I have a very close acquaintance who works at Samsung Electronics, and he was very upset because the quality was not that good, and the gadget, the device that was used in the process, was made by that company. So anyhow, the contents, I think that we have already developed a lot of different contents related to North Korea and unification topics, but we have to think about how we can upgrade the quality of these contents. And also, when I asked the AI systems about DMZ, these are the answers that I received. Or when I asked about the future of a happily unified Korean peninsula, I asked that question and this was the image I got. So this is what is envisioned by AI when it comes to the happy future unified Korean peninsula. It was not what I had anticipated to see. So this is because of the distortion of data. There's not a lot of data on inter-Korean relations. That is why there's a distortion. There's not enough data feeding into the systems, and that is why we are not getting good outcomes. So I think that we have to create a separate platform for unification to work on the data issue. And here we had an exhibition on North Korea's musical instruments. And if you input a card, you can see a video of a person playing North Korean musical instruments. And on the right side, you can see an exhibition that took place in the National Museum back in 2020. It was an exhibition of the paintings of the Kumgang Mountain. It also used digital technology to have these drawings come to life. The waterfalls came to life using digital technology. I think that utilizing digital technology and combining them with our natural resources can be a good source for contents related to inter-Korean exchanges and North Korea. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. When we think about North Korea and also inter-Korean cooperation, there's the issue concerning individuals. And then there's the inter-Korean exchanges at the national level. Can there be good, solid exchanges among the individuals? Will there be any gaps between North Korean individuals versus South Korean individuals? Can there be synergy created through the collaboration among the two Koreas? And also, As it was mentioned by Dr. Lee, we have to think about our nationality. We are of the same bloodline, same Koreans. Recently in North Korea has been emphasizing the state first. The priority is placed on the state rather than the Korean nation. So I understand that there are concerns that North Korea is now pursuing a road that mimics or follows the Chinese model rather than the East Germany model. So now it is time to go on to our next presentation by our panelist. But after that, we will have a panel discussion and questions will be answered. And I'm sure that there will be some discussions about the East Germany model as well. And there were some questions that have been submitted for the panelists to answer. But we will have that be questioned. And also, Dr. Masa Kunhen also talked about that topic. But let's listen to Dr. Gabosebo first.
So first of all, I would like to thank the organization for KISDI and the KCC for this nice conference. And I feel honored to be among such prestigious scholars. So actually, I was asked to make comments and questions related to two presentations. Just a brief introduction. My name is Gabor Siba. I'm from Hungary. I have been living in Korea since 2013. I was a PhD student at Korea University at North Korean Studies, and now I'm at the Seoul National University. So as you can see here, the first presentation which I was asked to have some discussion about was Dr. Marta Kunhen's presentation. First of all, of course, I would like to thank Dr. Kunhen's nice interpretation. And of course, I read the whole article which she wrote with two of her scholars. One of my first tiny, suggestion and recommendation for scholars who deal with North Korea is that what I experienced in Korea, that if someone has the chance to interview some North Korean defectors, especially when it comes to contemporary society of the DPRK or including the contemporary media landscape of the DPRK, we can have maybe a more objective picture, even though I understand that North Korean defectors in the South Korean society, I mean the public image, can be very controversial because of many political issues. But this is just a tiny suggestion. So my first question would be related to this presentation, that how shall we consider, or how does Dr. Kunhen sees the future reforms or the future way of the North Korean media landscape? Because based on the experience of the GDR, so the German Democratic Republic, how will these foreign contents influence not just the media formats of North Korea, like TV shows and even TV dramas and some cinematic productions, but do you think that somehow it will influence and it will shape the society itself? So in other words, will this kind of new reforms or kind of media liberalization, if we can call it this way, lead to a kind of social and political changes of North Korea in a broader spectrum? I really like that Dr. Kunhen used the expression in the journal article that westernization of the GDR media landscape. So following this pattern, do you think that the North Korean media products is maybe under the way of some South Koreanization, that we know that, since the Arduous March, the Hallyu, the K-pop, and all the K-munhwa, so the K-culture has been influencing the North Korean society as well. My second observation and kind of related question to it, that I understand and the authors, the three authors of this article, have the hypothesis that somehow the DPRK follows the East German way rather than the Chinese way. Although I'm not that persuaded about this, honestly speaking, because if we see, Kim Jong-un's one of the first political initiations back in April 2012, the people first principle in Korean, it's Inmin Taejong Jeoljui, he also aimed to somehow increase the economic growth of the DPRK, including the living standards of the middle or upper middle class as well. So do you think somehow that North Korea also intends to follow the way of the PRC, so the People's Republic of China? In other words, if so, can media liberalization be a tool, a political strategy to increase economic growth? And my small observation about the contemporary media landscape of North Korea, I would, divide it in two big categories. There is the official leisure space or audiovisual space of North Korea, what the government, what the state can offer for its citizens. Mainly, of course, if you follow the North Korean TV channel, I don't know if you can follow it from South Korea, you will see much more TV dramas than, of course, cinematic productions. It has also many reasons why. But as also Dr. Kuhnemann's presentations, we know that somehow the illegal consumption of the external media contents, especially, of course, South Korean contents, are also very heavy influenced the society, since they are the smart, as I told, and not just the citizens, of course, watch these contents illegally, but of course the party officials as well, and even the cultural makers as well. So somehow they would definitely influence the media contents, at least in the formats, in technological terms as well. And the reason why I also collected some international North Korean film cooperations here, because North Korea was always open for international cooperations to attract foreign investors in the country. And related to the previous presentations, I also believe that not just sports diplomacy and music diplomacy can help kind of a bridge between the two Koreas at an acceptable political moment, of course, but also common cinematic productions. And the two other questions related to this presentation. So somehow, as I told you, that these illegal contents can be a guidebook for future North Korean media content makers and filmmakers and media shapers. Like we can see, the latest North Korean cinematic production is the first North Korean thriller, Day and Night. The trailer is available on YouTube. The Korean title is Harunat Harupam, and it's really dynamic. I mean, the editing and the shaping follows somehow the South Korean content. So definitely North Koreans want to catch up with the international trends, of course. And because of the time limitation, I have to go to the second presentation by Dr. E, and I really liked it. I really learned a lot. Thank you for that. So as you can see on the left column, I collected some old classic toy games, mainly military games. And you can see on the right side, you can see the contemporary computerized, so computer games. So my first question related to this, even though I received already many answers related to this, that how do you see the relation between the ideology and the games. So how do you see that even the contemporary games are ideologized and somehow politicized like in the previous decades? Or what is kind of duration? Because I could learn that even the adventure games and strategic games don't have these socialist symbols and no Kim Il-sung or Kim Jong-il portraits. Still, some games, of course, show these political elements. And the second question is related to technological development. As we know that North Korean animators, so cartoon filmmakers, received some international recognition in the past. And also, as I mentioned, that somehow the TV culture in North Korea tries to catch up with the international trends. And unfortunately, we also know that the IT hackers, so the computer hackers in the international arena received some technological skill. So how do you see the future of North Korean games related to technical aspect? So can these games be competitive with their international rivalries? How do you see in design and contents, of course? And my third question, very quickly, is about the domestic image of the games. As I also mentioned that since Kim Jong-un's policy, he wants to raise the living standards of the North Koreans, and also it comes with some economic growth efforts and technological development efforts. So how do you see the development of the social image in the contemporary North Korean society? Is it better evaluated nowadays than, for example, in the Kim Jong-il era? Because nowadays, of course, most of the rich North Korean citizens use electronic devices, smartphones, laptops, and devices. So these were my questions. Thank you very much. Yeah.
네, 가보세요, 선생님. 감사.
Thank you very much for your discussion. Well, the last two questions were related to the presentation related to North Korean games, especially the question on technology development, as well as how it is being used for domestic image of games. And these questions will be answered by Dr. Lee Ji-sun. Concerning the question to Dr. Kunen, we will be sending the question to Dr. Kunen for her answers later on. But it is basically about how foreign media can change domestic media, and if it does trigger domestic media changes, will it then translate into changes in society? So these are the hypotheses by Dr. Kunen, and you ask questions concerning these hypotheses, especially concerning how the consumption of foreign media, in particular the consumption of South Korean media, is currently preferred by North Korea, and can it actually be the reason for changes in North Korean media? Well, these are aspects that we need to give a lot of thought to. So we will be waiting for Dr. Kunen's answer at a later opportunity. But we do have presenters, 3 presenters on stage with us, so we will be going back to their answers. So the technology level of North Korean hackers and the videos that we have seen, well, the virtual production of Dr. Kim Myung-han.
I was looking at that video clip, and also I was listening to your presentation, but thinking about the contents created by North Korea. Well, actually, looking at what you've created, you probably negotiated how to shoot everything in advance. For example, the angles and everything. And you talked about the North Korean footages that were recorded on camera. But I understand that it was North Korea that recorded everything on film in regards to the North Korean footage. Of course, there were negotiations in advance, but were you satisfied with the results? Can you explain about your experience working with the North Korean team for the footages that you showed? And also for Mr. Song Moon-jung,
평창 올림픽
Well, during the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, well, we were caught off guard because when we had a single team in the past, we had full support by the South Korean people. But we had a single team for the hockey team, and the millennials, they were very unhappy with the single team because the South Korean players had trained all their life to participate in the Olympics, but a part of them could not be a part of the team because they had to give room to the North Korean players. And so the millennials were very upset on whether this is fair. And so the government was not able to answer that. So for sports cooperation and exchanges, we always think about single teams with North Korea. But concerning this, what are some of the long-term perspectives that we need in the South Korean society?
제가 질문
And I have another question for Dr. Lee Ji-sun. Professor Choi Sun actually submitted this question. This question was originally directed to Dr. Masa Kunen, so I would like Dr. Lee Ji-sun to answer this question. When you compare the two Koreas, there can be the issue of standardization. North Korea follows a lot of standards adopted in China, and later on, there can be a lack of interoperability among the different standards between Korea and North Korea, and this can lead to additional costs. For example, the Hangul program is not it has no interoperability with the program used in North Korea. Is there a solution to this challenge? So this is about standardization. I thought because she talked about the game industry and it's about technology related, she might be able to answer this question. Why don't we have Mr. Sung answer his question first?
아시는 것처럼 또
As you are well aware, and as you have mentioned, fairness is a very important value because the players usually they prepare for the Olympics for at least 4 years. But once we have a single team with North Korea, not all of them can compete in the Olympics. And North Koreans, they always want half-half for the players. And from South Korea, they always want to make sure that we divide the spots according to ability. That's always an issue. And as I mentioned in my presentation, it's very difficult to negotiate for the men's team because the North Korean young men, they want to win a medal so that they can have exemption from military service. And in Korea, if you win a gold medal, you have a pension of 1 million won per month from the very next month for the rest of your life. And so there are many incentives in Korea to motivate the players for the Olympics. But if we form a single team with North Korea, then half of the players will be exempt from this potential. And so we need to find a legal structure to compensate players in the case of single teams. But we have not seen any advancements in these legal structures. And so this actually is an issue of opportunity. And that is why there were many people against a single team in South Korea. But the IOC and other international organizations always promote single teams. So that's why they have always a consensus. For example, if you only have 30 entry spots, then they would extend those spots to 35 people for a single team so that we can add 35 players from North Korea to the 30 players that we already have in South Korea. And I do believe that in the future, international organizations will provide such considerations in the future because of the resistance within the South Korean public. So there was a lot of resistance, but after the Olympics were over, there was a change in the public opinion. But nevertheless, these issues will continue to rise in the future. And so international organizations are well aware of these controversies. So in the future, we will probably be provided with additional entry spots for in the case of having a single team with North Korea. I do believe that this consideration will continue to be provided in the future as well. But despite such concessions, for example, if your military service lies on this, it's very difficult to go into negotiations. For World Championships, it is different. But for Olympics and Asian Games, it's very difficult to make concessions from the South Korean side, because for the Asian Games and the Olympics, the men will be exempt from military service if they win a medal. And so it's very difficult to ask the players for their understanding under these conditions. And so I don't think there are anyone who can say that we can ask the players to make a personal concession, because the number of spots that we earn in international competitions depends on the results, the past results of our players. So the players that actually earn that spot through past competitions. So it's very difficult to say that we need to give up a part of those spots to North Korea. And so that is why international organizations are making exceptions for inter-Korean single teams. So in the future, if we do have a single team with North Korea, I do believe that these rules will continue to be applied.
Yes, well, our generation, if you think about the single teams created in 1991 and 1992, the single Korean teams, we have the experience of them winning the games. So we have a positive attitude towards single teams created by the two Koreas. But for the younger generation, the Gen Zs, they're not that positive, relatively speaking. And also the results of their participation was that good, their scores or their performance. And that is why they were not that motivated to root for the inter-Korean single team. So I don't think that we can simply persuade them by saying that the single team is good. We have to find a way towards raising the people's support for such inter-Korean cooperation, because this is an area which concerns the military service of the young men who participate in these sports events. So we have to consider all of these aspects when we try to pursue inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation in the field of sports. Next, Mr. Kim. Yes. So Dr. Lee Jung-chul and Dr. Chun, thank you very much for your comments. And also, Dr. Chun Yong-sun, you mentioned about the Hyundai Motors advertisement, and that is a remarkable piece of work that indeed received awards and accolades in international contests and events. And I think that if you watch it today, still, your heart is moved. Very moving and touches your heart. And if you look at the program that we made, there's a car that these people drive, and it was inspired by that advertisement as well. We created this as a broadcasting content, and we showcase this to the viewers who watch TV. But I think that aside from that, I think that we can have more people enjoy these types of concepts in a different way. Let's say that the displaced people are people who want the experience of indirectly visiting their hometowns. I think that there can be a way of utilizing this technology to help these people to have that experience of going to their hometowns without being able to cross the DMZ. So there can be ways to utilize this technology to once again promote that connectiveness between the two Koreas. You asked about the footage that was shot in North Korea. We initially thought about using CG technology to create new images, but actually we were approached by Gangwon Province, and Gangwon Province said that they wanted to create a immersive contents where the students would get on a train and feel as if they're on a North Korean Road system, and they're experiencing North Korea. So what we did was we created that content utilizing the footage that we had, and the students had the opportunity to visit places, famous places in North Korea, such as Kumgang Mountain and Kema Plateau. And we thought that this can actually be an experience that can be beneficial for the students to prepare for their future. We thought that it was really meaningful to take part in that program because of that. You asked about the North Korean footage that was recorded there. This is like a sales secret, a commercial secret. But anyhow, if I do provide you with some information, first we had to think about the sanctions against North Korea. There's a sanctions by UN. There's also the individual sanctions by different countries. We had to abide by the sanctions, but at the same time, we wanted to be able to gain access to quality contents. And there were certain types of contents or footage that we wanted. So the footage that was recorded on camera had to meet all of that criteria. So we worked with many different agencies, including the Ministry of Unification. And these broadcasting companies such as MBC, we have the team that is dedicated for inter-Korean ties. So we had all of these different teams and agencies on board to make sure that we can meet all of the different criteria points. And also I mentioned about the need to be free from politics or ideology, because these topics can be very sensitive to politics and ideology. In order for contents to be lively, however, and to continuously garner attention and be well received by the contents, I think that these have to be contents that can generally win the hearts of everyone, the public. It has to be contents that can be accepted by South Koreans and also North Koreans as well when it comes to inter-Korean relations related contents. So we were thinking about that kind of contents that can be well embraced by South Korean viewers and also by the global audience as well, and also by the North Koreans. And I think that you need to have the experience of building and creating North Korean related contents to have that grasp or understanding of what kind of contents would work. And also we needed the experts to create this content. Like I said, in 2021 and 2022, well, we were hit by the pandemic and North Korea really shut down its borders. It was really difficult to shoot footage of North Korea. The only way was to utilize a crew within North Korea and send the filmed outside of North Korean borders. Of course, we had the very specific image that we wanted, and the footage that was sent to us was not 100%, but we did describe in detail the type of footage that we wanted. So we delivered to the North Korean team what kind of footage that we wanted in a very detailed manner. So although there are North Korean sanctions, there are ways to work with North Korea to create contents that can really be well received by both sides. There are ways to obtain contents and video images of North Korea, and there are many ways to create contents about North Korea. Yes. So when we talk with our assistants over the phone, sometimes we have difficulty communicating exactly what we want as professors when we talk with our assistants. But that's what you're talking about. So there is a way to remotely communicate and deliver your requests. Although you cannot meet face-to-face. You have your Conti, you have your plan, so you send that over in a very detailed manner so that you can have high-quality contents created and sent over to you. And make sure that it does not be in violation. It is not in violation of North Korean contents. So perhaps rather than sports, the digital technology-based contents might be a bit more advanced in North Korea. And of course, North Korea is very advanced when it comes to hacking technology as well. I used to work for Samsung Technology Institute, and I had a chance to visit Pyongyang because there was a software project, and I could see that there are many developers working at the center for technology development, and I could see that on their screens they were just inputting meaningless words. They weren't doing anything as well, anything at all. So I was saying to the people there that these people, the researchers, the developers, are doing nothing. And the developers are on our side say, you're saying that because you know nothing. Because whenever there are visitors visiting South Korean research centers, also the developers would not do anything at all because they cannot show the work that they're doing. They're disclosing the work that they're doing. And so the North Korean developers are doing that on purpose. They're not doing anything because they don't know how to work or develop software. It's because they didn't want to disclose what they're doing. We talked about the individual capacities and whether there might be a gap between the capacities of individuals that can be a barrier for inter-Korean exchanges. But I think that we can actually selectively identify the areas that can be good for solid inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation for good performance. And next, let's go on to Professor Lee Ji-soon. You received a number of questions by Dr. Kabusebo, and also you have to also answer the question about standardization. So please go ahead. Yes, I did receive a number of questions, but let me try my best to answer these questions to the best of my knowledge. First of all, in relation to the question you asked about standardization, you mentioned KCC, the Chosun Computer Center located in North Korea. And I think that there was exchanges between KCC and North Korea and its counterpart. And the keyboard, North Korea calls this 컴반, but there was a standardization of the keyboards used in both South Korea and North Korea. This was quite an accomplishment. So there was standardization for the input keys for the keyboards. And so it is now possible to utilize South Korean keyboards to input North Korean words. And for example, there are different words that we use for these keyboards that are used in North Korea versus the words used for South Korean keyboards. If we use the 창덕 건반 of North Korea, we can have interoperability with South Korean keyboards. And also, there's a Korean Media Center, and there is this website, and Joseon Nodong newspaper and other contents are serviced through the KPM. So this is like a North Korean media center for the outside world. And when you copy the contents on that website, you can actually copy and paste, and you can utilize the contents on that website. What this means is that even though there is not the same software being used, we can actually utilize the output that's being shared on the North Korean website. We can use the output of those contents. So I think that we have made some progress in terms of standardization between the two Koreas. And the various questions asked by Mr. Kabusebo, well, let me try to answer these questions. In North Korea, the smart ones, they major IT. In South Korea, the smart ones go to med school, but in North Korea, they go to major IT. What's the difference here? The North Korean smart kids, they go to major IT and they major in computer-related skills or technology. It has been only less than 10 years since North Koreans started to develop their own games and start to advance their technology. But there has been much achievements over the course of 10 years. There has been version 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 if you look at the games of North Korea. But if you look at the different generations of the games, you can see that there has been fundamental change in terms or advancement in terms of the designs and the characters that you see in these different versions. And I looked at the games, of course, I could not look at all of the games released by North Korea, but I could see that there was remarkable development. So North Korean developers were developing the softwares in accordance with the specifications of the hardware developed by North Korea. For example, to minimize the buffering and also the heat that is generated through the hardware, the devices. Of course, there is a difference of the CPU and the memory. These developers were aware of the hardware level in North Korea and developed the software in accordance to the level of hardware to make sure that there is limited buffering. And also, let's say that it's an action game where there's competition. The movements have to be very natural. As it was mentioned by Mr. Gabosebo, North Korea had really high quality animations developed by the professionals in North Korea. But if you have too advanced animations or graphics, then there can be buffering of the hardware that's provided and distributed throughout North Korea. So if you look at the software, it's not because of the capacity of the developers, but because of the hardware, there's a limitation to the level of quality of the software developed by North Korea. So what I'm saying is, North Korean experts have a lot of capacity in terms of software development. There's a lot of potential, but because of the hardware, they have not been showcasing all of that. But when we think about the global competitiveness of North Korean games, we have to think about the creativity and the effects of the game. What I mean by effects of the game, let's say that you're hitting or attacking the character. For example, you need to have the vibration to really feel that hitting attack. And also there's a sound effect. For example, if you're attacking someone, you have to have that sound effect, but that's quite weak in the North Korean games. Of course, when we're talking about the games developed into the 2010s. So when you look at those games, they have relatively weak global competitiveness. But the games that are developed after 2019, for example, we do not know because we've not been able to really see all of the games that have been developed since that period. But we do know that a lot of the IT experts of North Korea went overseas to participate in the game productions and development. Of course, they were not involved in the planning and design, but in the programming and the engineering. So there is a lot of expertise in that area when it comes to the synopsis design and the character design. I think that once North Korea has that expertise, and I think that there is great potential for further advancement of the North Korean gaming industry. And also the question related to the PC bang of North Korea, it was included in the PPT slides that I provided. You mentioned about Day and Night and the trailer. The Harunat Harupam, that's a Korean title. And also, I wrote a paper on this, looking at the trailer, the online series. It was a very sophisticated work that was done by North Korea. The digital media and North Korea's broadcasting, I think that this had been really a source for driving the change within the digital media and broadcasting of North Korea. And I think that now the discourse in broadcasting of North Korea is modernization, globalization, and digitalization. And I think that these three keywords can create synergy within North Korea and really drive change. It is actually driving change in North Korea, these three trends: globalization, modernization, and digitalization. So of course there's the ideology in North Korea, but when I looked at the media contents, I could not see any of that ideology in the media contents that I looked into for my research. Because I looked at games, the games were divided and separated from the ideology. I even questioned, why is it so? Why is ideology separated from the gaming industry or the game contents? I interviewed a number of the young North Koreans, and they seem to have different ideas. Games are just games. That's what they thought. For example, if you're playing a racing game, they would drive through Manhattan, for example, or they would drive the megacities. And when they play games, they would be a U.S. military man, and they would shoot the enemy. But they did not think of the system or the ideology when they were playing those types of games. They were separating reality from these games. And what the game developers were thinking about was, because of the censorship, they were thinking about the language. That was it against the state? Was there any sexualism in the contents? But Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, or any of those revolutionary system-related images, those were not reflected into the games, so they were not thinking about those types of things when they were developing the games. These games were really focused on the entertainment factor, and so I do believe that North Korean games have great potential for further advancement. So once there's further technology advancement, and once there's expertise of design in the North Korean gaming industry, I think that there's further room for greater advancement. And also another point that was raised, I think, did you ask about the movie quota system? Movie quota? Yes. So, in relation to the PC bang, well, if I were to talk about the PC bang, we have to stay throughout the night. We have to spend the whole day. But yes, the PC bang environment is not that open. Even if there is an e-library that serves as a PC bang, this is in operation, but it's not open to everyone in the North Korean society. It's not open to all of the North Korean public. It's a very closed space that only a number of people can utilize. They have their own code. You have to make a phone reservation in order to gain access to that PC방. So it's a very secret place limited to a number of people, and it's very expensive. So if you do not have the financial capabilities to utilize that facility, you cannot gain access to it. So it's a private PC방. Even if you do live in that district, you may not be knowledgeable of that PC방 being operated. So it's very exclusive. Nowadays, of course, a lot of information is open, but the PC방 related information may not be open to everyone. It's very exclusive. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Lee, within your presentation, you talked about the game narrative. And so I think this is a little bit embarrassing, but what shaped my life values is not literature, but the biggest influence on my life is the movie that I saw, the comics that I read when I was a boy. It was about a baseball team. And that comic series actually influenced my life values. So when children play games, there is the narrative in the game, and that narrative will then impact that child. Even if you teach them Juche ideology, even if you teach them culture of North Korea, I think that game narrative will always be with that child. That is my experience. And so games are penetrating the society, and it may look like it's not challenging the regime, but it's an opening of the state. And I think it's a very important factor in the process of opening the country. But we don't see the results overnight because we have online network-based games in South Korea, but that's not possible in North Korea yet. And so you may not think that games could be a platform for exchanges, but I think it's really a matter of time. And so from games, I think we can find future motivations for inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation. We do have a little bit of time left. So to Dr. Chun, I have a question from Dr. Sebo. So Dr. Sebo talked about how their policy is to put the people first. So this is about possibly the welfare of the citizens. So if North Korea is emphasizing the welfare of the people, then does it mean that they are switching their direction to economic growth? From the 1990s to early 2000s, their priority was on nationalism based on socialism. And then one day, all of a sudden, they put a priority on citizens and the state. So they're not talking about nationalism anymore. So there is definitely a shift in their priorities. So does that actually mean a change in their policies? So when we talked about nationalism, it was in the 1980s when they were responding to changes of other socialist nations. At that time, they emphasized that they are Arirang people and the people from the sun. So they try to bring together the members of their society by emphasizing their nation and saying that they are different from other socialist countries that are becoming transitional. And so that actually happened in the 1990s. And at that time, they continue to emphasize strong nation, 백두산 nation. And then during Kim Jong-il era, they started to emphasize socialist culture country. But now they believe that they have gone past that and they want to become an international part of the international society. And in 2012, with Kim Jong-un, this is a very pivotal point for their life because they emphasize 주체, and 주체 starts in 1912. And so that's the start of the 주체 year. And so 주체 100 years was when Kim Jong-il died, and now they have 주체 111th year when Kim Jong-un announced their New Year speech. And so that actually was almost a vision for the next century because it was the second century of the 주체 calendar. So they want to become a cultural country and a country for the citizens. And so that's why in 2012, they emphasized putting citizens first. And then in 2019, they announced the era of putting the state first. And so that actually is a way of ruling the people for the next century. And so this is an approach by the state to the citizens. And so when the citizens receive that approach, then the citizens need to engrave that in their hearts and respond to those priorities. Well, you worked at Samsung, but did you work at Samsung because you love their mission? No, it's because they gave you something and you're giving something back. This is the same for North Korean citizens as well. So if the state gives them something, then they have to do something in return. For example, wear clothes with badges and wear bags with the emblems, and you need to love the nation. So it's give and take. So it's not a regular state to citizen relations, but it's a give and take relationship. So that is what we can see from 2012 to 2019 and beyond. And one other thing that I wanted to add is that I do believe that we will see more North Korean contents because before COVID-19, when we had good inter-Korean relations, one of the projects that I participated in was to film one of the 8 natural sites that was located in North Korea. And so I actually had a project to film that for virtual reality, but that project is no longer valid today. So in North Korea, South Korea cannot enter North Korea, but other countries can enter. There was a photographer from Singapore who entered recently. So due to COVID-19, they didn't want anyone to come into their country, but on August 31st, they actually adopted a tourism act during their General Assembly, and they also reconnected a bridge in Amnokgang that has not been connected for 10 years. And so it seems that they actually wish to promote tourism. And so in the past, taking pictures was prohibited, but I believe that this ban may be lifted or at least deregulated. Because in the past, it was difficult to take pictures as tourists, but now tourists are allowed to take pictures and upload those pictures on the internet. And so I do believe that more contents from North Korea will be circulated. Well, when I was at Samsung, I did not work at Samsung because of their mission, for sure. Well, let me try to wrap up what we have mentioned. As Dr. Kabo Sebo has mentioned, is North Korea following the East German model or the Chinese model? We have to give this question consideration. I think Dr. Chung, what he stated was a partial answer to those thoughts. Thank you very much to all of our presenters and panelists. Another big round of applause, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. So I would like to thank all 5 panelists participating in the panel discussion, and please return to your seats. So under the topic of inter-Korean exchanges in the era of digital media, we have carried out the International Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communications. I would like to thank our moderator, Dr. Lee Jung-chul, and our 5 panelists. Thank you so much. The 2023 Inter-Korean Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communication has now come to an end. I would like to thank the participants joining us offline and also those who have joined us online as well. Thank you. Next year, we will meet you again, and we will prepare an even better conference, but you can help us prepare a better program by participating in the survey questionnaire. So the satisfaction survey can be accessed using the QR code on this screen. Please provide us with your feedback. This concludes the 2023 International Conference on Inter-Korean Broadcasting and Communications. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.